page Mem Zayin 47 in Hemshech Ayin Beis, volume 1, the beginning of the Maimer Min Mona Bolok, Tofresh Ayin Beis, Maimer 8, and it's chapter 29. So just to sum up where we are, the last 11 chapters, 18 through 28, was an elaborate discussion on understanding the nature of Er Pnimi. According to this drush, according to Hemshech Ayin Beis, the Rebbe Rashab is going toward the opinion, as he emphasizes, that the Eris are mitzayarim, which means that the energy itself has some particles, has some identity. It's not just Klei HaChesed, the container of the Chesed, and Klei HaGvura, container of Gvura, but it's also Er HaChesed, Er HaGvura. Obviously, it made it very clear, it's sefirot bli ma. That's what it says in sefirot, it's bli ma. It means it doesn't have personality, doesn't have substance. Ma. Like the containers have absolute substance. Not physical substance, spiritual substance, meaning a spiritual identity, but a distinct identity that is not another. A gvura is not chesed. In Eir, though it has chesed and gvura, as he explained, it's somewhat hafshatedik, it's somewhat abstract. The example being chesed and gvura in the way Shmai Vavtali and the teachers teach Shammai and Hillel. So, to say that it's completely blima, it says esesfiris. It's not completely blima. In other words, you can't call it pshitus mamish. That's the words he used. You can't call it completely formless or shapeless, seamless. But it's pshitus lefiyarach. You can call it relative pshitus. Compared to the substance or the identity of the containers, the energy is formless. But compared to its source, it's not infinite spheres, and each sphere is not Eira Chachma is not Eira Bina. And when they fit into the containers, the Eira Chachma goes into Chachma and won't go into Bina. And he proved that many different ways. Just like the faculties of the soul also, the faculties, the way they are in the soul, there's no shape and form, you can't identify them. But when the enters into the containers of the body, into the eyes, Er Hariyah goes into the eyes, not Er Hashmiyah. So you have to say that in some way, even on the level of the faculty, meaning before it entered the container, there's something there. There's something is hard for us to understand because we're tangible creatures. A table is a table. But if someone asks you, what are the molecules like inside of the atoms of, let's say, H2O, hydrogen and oxygen, you'll say, if a child asks you, can I touch an atom? You can't touch an atom. You can't see it. But it's clearly the atomic structure of one element and not of another element. When do you see it? When it's tangible. A simple example, I gave a few examples you can give is like we know a very simple gas, liquid, water, and ice. Today we know, and you could see it simple. You could take water and you could freeze it, it's ice. If you heat it, it turns into gas. So it's the same thing in different state. So when someone looks at the gas is much more amorphous. Again, it's only a physical example because we're talking here ruchnis. But spiritually speaking, you can also identify things. So keli is a clear, distinct identity. Shammai paskins l'chumra is more stringent because his kelim, the way his mind and his soul is structured, is more gvura.
Genetic makeup.
Hillel is more chesed. Yet, they both heard the same thing from Shmai Vavtali, so you have to say chesed and gvura is already in the idea and the concept. I'm just using the example you used earlier. Then when it enters their containers, it solidifies. But if they go back to their teacher and they hear the idea again, Shammai could hear the second time around, or you could rethink it, and this time, and that's why you have the exception. Achlifa d'chtai, you have the exception that he can sometimes be mekel. He'll sometimes see chesed. How's that possible? His containers, he didn't change, his personality didn't change. So you have to say the idea has in it the other possibility that's solidified usually like gvura. So you have the Er HaChesed, B'klei HaGvura, basically. Bottom line is that there's a state that is not Pshitus Mamish, which is the 10 spheres of Atzilus, but it's the relative Pshitus compared to the containers. But to understand that, he went into the whole discussion of the Kav, because the root of this is the Kav, which means, according to this opinion, that the Kav does have some structure. In other words, the Kav is not bli gvul, and just radiating from the infinite light before the Tzimtzum, the Kav itself has already even more subtle form than Atzilus, of course, which gets harder to understand. As more subtle you go, the more difficult it is to relate to. But nevertheless, it's there. So there we went into the whole discussion. That was chapter 18, where when it began the discussion, proving from the Eitz Chaim that the Eitz Chaim's question that why didn't just the kav remain after the tzimtzum, meaning why do you need a total tzimtzum, is a proof that the kav could have remained hypothetically because the kav is not bli gvul, because the kav is not infinite. However, for the containers, it had to be complete tzimtzum. But again, the question is, so what did the tzimtzum do to the kav? If because of the kav itself, they didn't need a tzimtzum complete, so what he says is that you have to say, according to this opinion, that the kav hasn't. There's two tzimtzumim going on. One, the kav, as far as energy goes, is a diminishing, not a complete siluk. The siluk effects is number one compared to the containers, and number two compared to the eira bli gvul. That for the infinite light, it had to be a complete concealment. For the sefirot agnuzis, which is the root of the kav, or the root of the energies, there's a diminishment going on. So we discussed this at length last time. All what the nekuda, the two tzimtzum and the nekuda. So I just wanted to add for the record. I saw the root, the source for this. This is actually the lashon from the Alter Rebbe. The nekuda zu yeshbet beis tzimtzumim. Here's the Tzemach Tzedek, Eira Teira in Yonim. I started comparing it, but I didn't finish. So he says like this. Mama says exactly those words. I'll just read to you. This is the Alter Rebbe's lashon in my Mori K'tzorim and in Yonim, and Tzemach Tzedek cites it. It says, "V'anakuda hoye bo beis tzimtzumim." So this piece here that we said, was like how was it compared to before, is straight from here. And he says here, Eirein Sov Nikre Mashamer in Eira Teira K'tzorim Om Mitof Mem and in Yonim Om Mem Hey. From Alter Rebbe, yeah. Anyway, so. And I'm reading from the Tzemach Tzedek. Okay. Yeah. Tzimtzum el she'erein sabarach u'tzimtzum kol ereisa v'hitzil men b'chinas tachtena sheba'er k'maymer kulam b'chachma sisa. Mamish, word for word. So I want to compare it more before I really see, because maybe when you read this, you can start seeing like what he's referring to. It makes it easier. That's why a lot of these things, just for the record, besides knowing what he's going to say later, to look at where it comes from, because then as you get context, sometimes we can understand it one way, and when you look there, you start seeing, he means something a little different. So I have to look into that, but I just wanted to point that out. So let's continue now. So 1 second. So the last mimer, the last chapter, Chavches, was the conclusion of these 11 chapters. And the conclusion is that there's two tzimtzumim, and therefore the kav, not just the kelim. The kelim for sure are yesh ma'ayin, meaning like a new entity compared to the air, the energy before the tzimtzum. But also the air has in this two elements. There's an inyan of gilia helam. That's the sefirot atzilus are only revealing which is concealed in the kav, which is only revealing what is concealed in the 10 hidden spheres. Exactly. What we call like the vision of the artist, that he already wants this piece of art. So he's envisioned shir atzmei b'keach. He envisioned 10 spheres. It's only a vision. Remember, before the tzimtzum, nothing has emerged yet. But when it does emerge, it's not an emergence of something that was never existed inside the mind, so to speak, of the artist, or here in God's vision, and therefore the sefirot in that sense is gilia hel, the kav. On the other hand, compared to Eir HaBli Gvul, which is also left, a reshimu, a impression is left, like he said, from the Baruch, that there's something left in the word. You have something from the Eira El Al Kolano. There, it's a complete siluk, a concealment, even though there's an impression. 1 second. And that explains why the kav has two dual properties. On one hand, it's a kav hamida, it measures the parameters. On the other hand, it connects and creates iskalus and chibur kishur between all the spheres.
The question is, we said that it's the oil ha'oil al kulana. Even in Sharshi Esa Sfiras HaGnuzais, right? So you have this oil ha'oil al kulana. Now, the Rishimu has an advantage over everything else, because the Rishimu, there's the oil ha'oil al kulana also. The impression is not just from the 10 spheres.
No, for sure not. It's from the bli gvul.
It's from the oil ha'oil al kulana.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the Rishimu actually, even before it comes down, even before the siluk, which makes it only a Rishimu, is much higher than the kav, than the source of the kav, because the source of the kav is the sefirot agnuzis.
You got it.
And in this itself,
it's correct.
Malchus.
Yeah,
and this, it's from the oil ha'oil al kulana, which is much higher.
For sure, absolutely. Look, you have what's going on here is a dual dance here. From Al Zayton. On one hand, we're distant from it. On the other hand, there's something there. The question is it ends up being the interface.
Between the Kav and the Rishimu is different than we've always thought.
Hold on, no, one second. But he made it very clear that we're talking about a different Rishimu now. He says, the Reishim. Right. He calls it Rishim, but he says it's not the Rishim. Right.
What is Rishimu?
Rishim, he says in the parenthesis. Look on page Memhe. He says, "Ve'ein zeh rak li yeshid." It says, "Ein zeh inyan harishim shireshim ein zeh v'abligvul."
He's making clear that's not the same Rishim that you're referring to.
The bottom line is, look in the parentheses. He says it very clear. He says it a few places. The bottom line is like this. My bottom is like this. One second. Let me just for the record. Earlier he said clearly that the Rishimu, which is the Sheresh HaKelim, has something that Eir doesn't have. That Loi Nogaba Met Tzimtzum. See, the Eir HaKav, no matter how you twist it, the Tzimtzum affects it. Whether it affects it b'derech siluk compared to the Bligvul, or b'derech miyut compared to the Sheresh HaGvul, there's an effect. The kelim, at the end of the day, he's going to say the root of the kelim, because in a way it's almost like comes in under the radar. Because it's l'chadchila helam, a tzimtzum doesn't have to affect it, because kelim itself are not a contradiction. The shimmer could remain from blig vul after the first tzimtzum, because the kelim never can. Right, it's l'chadchila helam, not just the gvul. Eir hagvul is gvul. Eir hagvul needs to be diminished in order to become right. As soon as something is, the bottom line is, as I've said several times, if we translate Eir as transcendence, which means it retains a divine quality, it is always sensing its source. Kelim don't necessarily sense their source. Or maybe they sense it, but we can't sense it because it blocks it from us realizing it. So once they don't sense their source,
where kelim, the whole concept of kelim is to be held.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's why in order we need tzimtzum, because if we don't have tzimtzum, then there's no tachtonim.
You got it.
If it's the toikif, then there's no tachtonim.
Yeah. Well, I'm not. Listen. Right. We learned all this in the chapters. I'm just summing it up here. No, fine. It's called catching us, getting up to speed. Yeah. Look, there's a lot of sides to the picture here. I just want to, just for the record, right now he's not talking about kelim. The last 8-10 chapters that we learned here was really about Eir. He's going to go back now to kelim, but he talked about kelim before basically kelim is chapter Yud and Yud Aleph. Eir starts chapter Yud Beis and then goes all the way till here. All this was about Eir. In other words, and as I explained, that Eir, bottom line, has in it some type of personality, yet it's amorphous, it's nebulous or pshitas compared to the kelim. And the last chapter we learned that, and then in the end of the Maimer, he explained how it explains in the Pasuk and all that, how tshuva or pora, aduma, reaches Eir HaBligvul, whereas korbanos in general, aved in general, only reach the sheresh hagvul, Eir HaGvul.
So I was just trying to figure out. Kav means that malchus, the malchus of that malchus itself came back down. Becomes
not
something.
Not diminished. But b'derech miyut, however. There's a tzimtzum b'derech miyut, yes.
Well, miyut
because when malchus, no, because one second. Yeah. When malchus is in the sefirot, it's like the bays within Baruch. It's too intense. Right. So for it to be a bays alone,
but that very base, that very shape.
Same base, there's the very same base, but a base separate from the Reish Vav Chaf. Yeah. So it's both.
It means it's separated from the rest.
Yeah. Malchus, the Ein Sof, when it's without the Tzimtzum addition, is part of the other sefirot agnuzis and all bundled in as one. Well, no, for few things. First, it's bundled as one even before Eir al Kolana. Right. Then it has a meaning, and then it has Eir al Kolana. There's three things actually that are a problem, so to speak. Because Lifnei Tzimtzum, first of all, it's all part of a word, and you hear the word, not the letters. Number two, the meaning of the word. And then he says, from the Shaykh Vamunah, the Chiddush, that there's Eir al Kolana over the more than just the sum total of the meaning, there's the Chibur of the Tziruf of the Eis needs a special Chachma. So that's all earlier. Okay. Now he's going back basically to before chapter 18. Before he started. Because remember, the structure of Ayin Beis begins after he explains Keser, which is the first Mamutza. He's explaining basically Eir Pnimi, which is going for around 48 chapters, I believe. Within those 48 chapters, first starts the mashal example of the faculties of a human being. Then he applies that to how it is above in Adam Elyon, Tzelem K'Tzalmud K'Dmusenu, Tzalmenu D'Musenu, that there's also a structure of Eris and Kelim. Eris are so-called closer to the divine, Kelim are closer to existence. Together in Atzilus, they create the Mamutza. A represents so-called Elokus, The kelim represent the structure of existence that the artist wants. Then goes further that Eir also has some form of, and that's where we are right now. After a long arichas, I'm just giving a short summary. We're back that Eir has in it something that is some personality features that is blima compared, without form compared to the containers. But that's why Eir and container can meet. So an example, let's say, of the colorless liquid in tinted glasses, it's a physical thing. Yeah, of course they can meet. But what really happens? There's no real joining of the two. So you put water into a cup. Here in Eretz and Kelim Atzilis, you want a much more symbiotic relationship. You want like faculties of human. You don't just want the nefesh going into the body. You want the body to be alive, that you should see with your eyes and hear. God forbid, should there be a little, let's say, wound to the body, to a part of any container in the body, the energy doesn't remain there. So there's a very, very close relationship. It's like a tailored relationship between Eretz and Kelim. And that's really what we're talking about here. So the eloquence of this is unbelievable. He does not want to have just the Eir and Keli come from two different worlds. He wants them to join. But the joining is complicated because they're two opposite personalities. So Eir has in it something of Keli, so to speak, and Keli has something of Eir. A lot more of this is going to be said a lot later with Teyu and Tikkun. But that's what he said now. So let's continue now. Mimona, chapter, page Mem Zayin is going to be chapter Chavtes. Remember the chapters came later. So Mimona Ofer Yankev Umisperes Revi Yisrael. Basically, it's Bilam's blessing. That was meant to be something else. It turned into a blessing. Mimona Ofer Yankov. Who can count the dust of Yaakov? Umisperes Revi Yisrael. And the number of Reva. How would you translate Reva? The multitudes, of Israel. Uh-oh. Is the sound going all right there? Because here it's on red. Okay. But Sarach Lahavin.
That's you being involved in kelim.
Huh?
That's being involved.
I'm not being involved in kelim while we're talking about Eris. You want to do me a favor? There's a black case there near the bookcase. And the battery. I need to change the battery. But Sarach Lahavin Pirish or Misparis Reva. What is the meaning of Misparis Reva? Ima kavona sheyesh mispar, or shekoya mashakosav mimona. Does it mean if the kavanah is that there's an actual number, or it's just a continuation of what he said earlier? Who can count? In other words, a cappella, like to say.
Who apply also to mispar?
Right, exactly.
In other words, who can count and who can number?
Right, or
no, Reva Yisrael can be numbered.
Right.
That's the question.
Yeah. Let me just do a kelim change, if I may. Thanks. Strange. Yeah, should be working. Okay, right. So we have to understand what's the kavanah of misper. Or it's saying mimon, like in the sense, who can then count? Who can? There is no number. V'gam, we also have to understand haloi Yisrael hulamayim madregis Yankov. Isn't it a fact that Yisrael is higher than the level of Yaakov? We say two names. Kidua, as it's known. The pshat ha'pashad hu shelo yesh misper. So why by Yaakov, which is a lower level, do we say who can count? And there the simple interpretation is that there is no number, meaning who can then count? The Gabi Yisrael ksiva misper, meaning he's going according to the so-called the second pshat, that a misper is not a continuation of mimana. That Yisrael suddenly, which is a higher level, there's a number. Well, and to understand all this, we have to preface what we learned earlier, what was discussed earlier. This is a summary. I just want to say that the Frierdiker Rebbe in the summaries in the beginning of the Mafteach gives the summary for this mimer. For the previous mimer, the summary was Beis Inyanim b'Tzimtzum, Echad siluk, Beis b'Shar she'eres. And this mimer Ches, he says the summary is Eres datzilus b'Bchinas Eslapshus Pnimi. So you can see it's going back. That the Eretz Atzilus. So what's the summary here now? It goes like this. The Matamshacha she'eres that sefirot that siluk b'sharshan u'mekeiron she'hein asu sagnuz bein sof hu ayidei tzimtzum. That the transmission of the energies of the 10 spheres of Atzilus from their root and their source, which is the 10 hidden spheres in the infinite light, came through a Tzimtzum. That's what it says in general. It came through a Tzimtzum. And explain that in this there are two aspects. In this Tzimtzum Gufa. One is the concealment of the infinite light. This Tzimtzum is complete removal, because the bleak wool would radiate. Even a drop of it, you can't have that there in order to allow the emergence of the sefirot. The second is not in the bleak wool, in the root of the energies. The commercial kelim, of course, the way they're encompassed in infinite light. There, they're all joined together and united together and higher, exalted and loftier fundamentally, and they're not in any way a recognizable, distinguishable existence. And that's the Sharsheres, yeah. And also radiates in them, in addition to the fact that they're all joined together as one, like letters in a word, or the ideas, the details of an idea and the bigger idea. They also have the Eir Naila, which is the kavanah, the intention of the artist is manifest there. And what is the Tzimtzum here? The second Tzimtzum, in other words, the second aspect of the Tzimtzum, shenifratu, that they should be separated, they should be distinguishable, they should be broken into detail. You can translate all that. That you should have the transmission of one individual sphere. Through this Tzimtzum is diminished, the energy is diminished, and it becomes a distinguishable mitzvah. So, if you look, recognizable, distinguishable, so if you look into the artist's mind, we're talking about now it's not the artist's infinite possibilities. One possibility, he's now determined that he's going to create a certain structure. Elam Haza, let's say. The structure as we know it. If you look in the mind there, you can't distinguish, because all you see there is everything is all, the vision is one vision. You recognize the purpose is very powerful there. You know why I'm doing this. And bottom line is, even though everything that's going to come out of it is there, but it's not, you can't do anything with it. He has to now actually, for it to come out as a particular detail by detail of this picture, of this structure. This is the Tzimtzum, the second aspect of the Tzimtzum b'derech miyut. That's a summary, essentially, of what he said earlier. See here, by the way, you see, he says there's one Tzimtzum, but that's yesh beis in yonim. Because he starts, it's ayidei Tzimtzum. There needs to be a Tzimtzum. But it's yesh beis Tzimtzum. In other words, there needs to be a Tzimtzum in general. Okay, fine. Peirichov test, chapter 29. Vapi hanal.
Basics. Is there any chronology here, like in terms of this two colors of Tzimtzum?
There's no chronology in general, because we're talking, there's nothing in time.
Yeah.
But in concept, if you talk about an artist, think about the artist. So again, this is time, but it's not really relevant time. It doesn't matter. Let's go from the bottom up. When you see a structure, whether it's a piece of art or a book or a piece of music or a world, they're all the same thing. You clearly, and there's design, so there's intent in it. We may not know what the intention is, what the purpose is, but we know it exists. We also know that if in an organized situation, the way the existence works and the way God wants existence to work, that everything was rooted in a vision. Someone had a vision. So you have to really think of it like this. You have the Etzem artist, as he's beyond even being an artist. He's not even an artist. There's how he's an artist. There's Atzmus is beyond anything. You can't define it. I started from Atzmus. Atzmus you can't even categorize as Moed or as Beida, because Leize Ikar Elikus, etc., etc. It's not his. It's not. It comes from him, but it doesn't define him. It would be like I wrote letter Beis. That came from me, but it doesn't define me. It's like huma keme shalelim be'ena elam keme. I mean, it's even higher than that. Then there's how he wants to be an artist, which is also very general. I'm not going to say which madrega exactly. That's probably like Ein Sof HaKol, maybe. That he has within him the capacity to be an artist. You're already talking about the capacity of being an artist. Then you have how he actually determines, I'm going to be an artist. It's all still in a root. There's nothing, no reality yet. The chronology here is only in concept. Yeah, in concept. Then the artist now has bleak vulnerability to what artist is he going to create? He can create infinite worlds, infinite images, infinite structures. And then he envisions a structure like this. Now you're talking shir atzmut. So Eir HaBlikvul is the infinite possibilities. That's already Eir, not Kolol. That's already Eir that's outside of Kolol, but it's Eir Blikvul, infinite possibilities. And then this art. So we already have here 1, 2, 3 levels. Then you have the artist says, no, I'm going to now make this structure. A world that has Dem, Sameach, Chaim, Medaber, Atzilus, Bri, Yetzirah, Asiyah, Sefirot, all the different species, Asara Mamoris, you name it, the whole diversity, multitude. All a vision of one artist, whose this particular vision, as big as it is one of infinite possibilities, which is one of only one aspect of his reality, because he's beyond being an artist. So you see what's going on here? You're talking about such distance, but there's a relationship, because within this one picture, as we said, Eir al-Koloni also has infinite possibilities, a residue, an impression, and Atzmus that's beyond being an artist. Also, they see doesn't say here. I'm just saying it for the record. Atzmus beyond being an artist is the one that Nesav. He's the one. Why is there art altogether here? Because the essence that's beyond artist decided that he wants to be an artist, whatever reason. I'm not getting into the reasoning now. So in some way, you have to have here two things. You have to have a structure. And this is all lifnei Tzimtzum, mind you. So now comes another step. How does this now come into play? All this is within the artist. How does it now come into play in reality? So comes the Tzimtzum that does a bunch of things at once. It conceals, number one. It conceals everything from before, so now something can emerge. And he explains, it's Blikvul, infinite possibilities, has to be completely silenced, so to speak. Some impression remains, but very, it says, a Chachma remains bittul. Some bittul will remain from there. The second thing is that you need the diminishing, because even in this one piece of art, this one picture, as it stands there, it's still in the artist's mind, it's in a sense Blikvul, relatively speaking, to reality. It doesn't call it Blikvul, but relatively speaking, it's just one whole picture. So comes a Tzimtzum that diminishes and allows piece by piece to emerge. Essentially, the architect or the visionary cannot be the person who lays the bricks. Well, let me not say that. God forbid, you don't want to say that. It's not two creators. But I mean to say, laying the bricks requires a whole different type of it. Right now, you can't think, when you're laying one brick, in that brick lies the whole structure. But right now, I need you to lay this brick. That's why you see, for example, in business, you see often great businesses have two leaders. One is a visionary who sees things from the 30,000 foot level, and one is the operations. He's the execution. And usually people who are great at vision are not good at execution, and people who are good at execution are not good at vision. Example, Moshe Rabbeinu was a visionary. Betzalel is an architect. So Moshe said the kelim first, because he saw the kavanah. Betzalel said, what do you think? You can't have we have no building, how could you make containers? So Chassidus answers, because Moshe saw the kavanah. But Taka Betzalel is the one that actually implements. And implementing, first comes building, the structure, then containers. So you see, you need both. So the question is, what do we need then Moshe Rabbeinu? Because Moshe Rabbeinu knows the kavanah better. He knows the purpose of it all. Where the builder may know how to do it. So you see these two things, and they play with each other. If you have only visionaries, we won't have anything. We'll just have dreamers who dream very well. They know the big picture, and they can tell you every detail even. But it's still a machshava. You ever know those people?
Say 85% of small businesses fail because the same person is supposed to be a visionary and the implementer.
Exactly. It's very hard to see when you're on the ground level, the 30,000 foot level. And from a 30,000 foot level, to bring it down is not easy. So, the examples you get. My interesting footnote that I'd like to say, which I use this all the time when I raise money, is who was given the job of fundraising. You think would be the implement. It's the visionary. Moshe. Hashem made Moshe the fundraiser, not Betzalel. That he didn't delegate. Yesh Lahayra was there. Why? Why should the visionary be the one busy raising the money? Let the guy that's implementing be raising. I guess because that's the hardest part, and it's only the visionary who's so committed that is going to do it. Why would the guy who's building, he says, I'll build it, or I'm not going to ask people for money.
The guy implementing would be busy fundraising, he wouldn't have time to implement.
Yeah.
You have to make that he shouldn't have any digest.
Anybody's done fundraising, they'll understand very well this dilemma. It's a big dilemma. We'd love to find a delegator for that. You can't delegate that. That's nicht. Because that's even nidrike, the ground level. Safe ma'aser machshava tchila. Okay. So Perik Chavtes. V'api hanal yuvan. See, api hanal. According to the above, verstehen yuvan inyan islapshus eres bekelim. We'll understand the manifestation. Hislapshus is a very important word here because it means that it really dresses up in. Now remember, lavush is not like kreches, he explained that. But think about a lavush. We say there's only mazon, lavush, bayis. There's three needs a person has. Food, lavush is garments, and bayis is shelter. So Chassidus says, pnimius is mazon, you actually digest it. Lavush is makif hakariv, and bayis is makif harochik. You see a different distinction. Garments do not become part of you, but they're tailored to you. A garment that fits is tailored to the body. A house, even though you maybe can tell in general, but a house, anybody can live in the house. The house is not tailored or measured to the size of the person living there. You can have a fat person in a small house, you can have a skinny person in a fat house. I mean, that's just in line. It's not what he says here. My point is that Islapshus, what he means here is the Islapshus of Keches Hanefesh, or Eris and Kelim, that Islapshus, in this sense, is that focus is not on the Levush as being a part, but on the Levush as being very tailored. So Islapshus is a hard word to translate. I mean, to say, I use the word manifest, but that wouldn't be, if they use it generally, Islapshus as tailored is not, I wouldn't use that word. But Islapshus Eres B'Kelim literally means that the Eidos, the energies are dressing up in the containers. More specifically, they manifest in them. The best English words, actually, I would say, is integrated and internalized, that's the real meaning of it. The definition of Islapshus means like dressing up. But really, we're not talking about dressing, because dressing up, you can also dress up in a costume. You can dress up, you can masquerade. So the real meaning of Islapshus is internalization and integration. That it's internalized. Anyway, so according to the above,
What about synthesis?
Synthesis is more than Islapshus. Synthesis is almost Iskaulus. Synthesis, you could use synthesis also. I mean, those that know the word synthesis. When you synthesize, what about fusion? What happens is, you see there's two steps here. The Eidos and the kelim first have to come into each other in a very specific way. Every air fits its particular container. Every container is a container for that particular energy. Then there's more things that happen. I would say synthesis happens afterwards. Once that happens, there's a real synthesis. Like, in other words, there's a synthesis, there's interconnectivity, there's harmony, there's a whole bunch of words you can use. There's fusion. But you see, Islapshus Eres B'Kelim is not yet what we call Iskaulus. Iskaulus is when not just there's Eira Chesed and a Klei Chesed, but Eira Chesed and Klei Chesed interconnect with Eira Gvura and Klei Gvura, and they contain, but they also, like for example, in the human body, what happens is when you're looking with your eyes at something, there's 1,000 other processes happening at the same time. And coordination between your eyes and your ears, coordination between your arms and legs, the brain is processing many things at once. That already is more than just. It's not so much just a man. I'm just trying to explain. Islapshus Eres B'Kelim basically is that it's not like the contrast would be makif, rotzen, keser. When the sun shines on something, even though it has sometimes an integrated impact, let's say on things it makes grow, or solar energy, but generally speaking, the sunlight itself doesn't matter whether it's a garbage pile or it's a palace. That's the classic makif. That it's not tailored to the containers that it is addressing. It would be like if you hear a speaker who speaks above everybody's head, then nobody really gets it. Whereas somebody who's will understand, people understand in a personal, in a catered and a personalized fashion is also another way to put it. So, Zahari.
the one Nakuda that you said that every oil comes to its container, like oil chesed, kliya chesed, and oil kliya gvura, that here there's a difference between Tohu and Tikkun, because in Tohu, there was only one container for the whole of Zeirachim. So, Bina started shooting out Iris.
But that's going to be addressed in other chapters now.
Maybe. I'm saying this is in Tikkun, that's the way it is, that every Ur has its container.
Okay. So up here now, Yuvnin Islapshas Eres Bekelim, Shahriya Eres Vakelim, Hem Bechinis Richu Ka'erech, Zemezeh. The energies in containers there's a distance. Richu Ka'erech means a distance in the proportion between the two. Richu Ka'erech Zemezeh. In other words, what he's coming to explain now is something he hasn't gotten to yet. What has been discussed so far is that Eris and Kelim are like Keiches and Evorim, which means just like a faculty of the soul manifests in a tailored way into the containers of the body, the same as the energies of the divine manifest in the containers of Atzilus, and he explained how they work together. But then he went off into a whole explanation of how they're different in the sense that the containers are created through distance, and the energies are revealed, and explaining that Atzilus has both aspects. That was the long discussion. So now he's going back to where he left off. If you really want to know where this is actually going back to, you have to go to almost to the second Maimer, third Maimer, chapter 9. Because up here now, you're not even early. What am I talking about? The second Maimer, chapter 5. So this is really a continuation of chapter 5, 6, 7. But then he went off into Atzilus and the whole thing of Gilead Helam and Yesh Ma'ayin. I'm just pointing it out for those learning the whole thing and the flow. That not that anything here is parenthetical. It's all relevant, critically relevant, but just for the structure of this hemshech, the details, so to speak. Not Eid al Kolona, not the whole collective energy. He's going back now to the actual dissecting but based on all this discussion, now that we know that Pnimi went through at Tzimtzum b'derech miyut, and all this that went on, we'll now understand better how these two meet. Because this all explains why is not bli gvul. Because according to the opinion that is bli gvul, you have a big problem of Islapshus Eres v'kelim. Can they really be tailored to each other? Or it's like I said, it's like an infinite light in colored glasses, colorless light in color. So all this is coming to explain the Islapshus in a much better way, and a much more eloquent way. Whereas, as I said, but he's going back to, so that's the structure of it. He began with what Eris and Kelim are. They manifest in each other like faculties and containers and faculties and organs in the body, and explained that at length how Eris and Kelim work in Atzilus. And now he's coming back to understand how they meet. So there was a discussion of containers. Now there's a long discussion over 11 chapters, more than probably 15 chapters on energy, and now we're going back to how energy and containers meet. Again, for my own sanity, 1 second, let me just get some control here. So chapters 5 and 6 are about the containers coming together. 7, yeah. Chapters 9 and 10 were about the containers. Chapters 11 all the way till here was about the energies. Okay. So that's a lot of chapters, I would say. 11 to 29. 18 chapters. 5, 6 was in general, what Atzilus is, Eris and Kelim in general. But specifically, 9 and 10 were containers. 11 and 12 and on are all about the air. The different aspects of it. And then when, as I said, chapter 18 began Esesir Sagnuzis. Okay, that's good to know. 5, 6, 9, and 10. Okay. So the Shahari Eid Kelim, so we just said, are proportionally distant to each other. Ukamay Haguva Nefesh, like the body and the soul. Sherachik Erchem Ma'id, that their distance is, they're very distant from one another, proportionate to each other. Shanefesh ruchni v'agufu chemer v'gashmi. The nefesh is a spirit but it basically means the soul. We're talking about the energy life force within the body, is spiritual, is ethereal. V'agufu chemer v'gashmi. Chemer means substance, and gashmi and material. So he doesn't translate what ruchni and gashmi, what ruchni is and what gashmi is, what chemer is. He doesn't say tsura, but basically, just to give us a sense of the difference between Eris and Kelim. Remember, they're not exactly the same, because Eris and Kelim are both ethereal in Atzilus. A Keli is not tangible. You can't touch a Keli. But Al Derech Zeh, the example would be the distance from the body to the soul. That's the distance from the Kelim to the Eir. So that just gives you a sense of what we're talking about. So in other words, the distance from Gashmis to Ruchnius. In Ruchnius itself, there's a difference between Kelim and Eir. The best way to define it, as I just said it before, kelim represent the part of ruchnis which is defined. Like, let's talk about, let's say in concept, we talked about looking at an apple or an orange. So an apple is a physical apple. In your mind, it's a vision of an apple. But the vision of an apple is different than the vision of an orange. Right? And then there's the air of it. The air of it... Yeah, but it's an image of it. It's like an image, like a snapshot. And then there's the air is distant even from the air of, let's put it this way, what's more distant from what? A physical apple is more distant from a physical orange, or is it more distant from the image of them? So it's different as a species is different, but you're talking about from ethereal to physical. The vision of an apple, the vision of an orange are much closer than a physical apple is to a physical orange. Or the vision is more distant from the actual than it is from one other actual. Right. In other words, one yesh to another yesh is closer, even if they're very apart, than a yesh to an ayin, to a ruchni. The point I'm making here is that it's a good exercise to try to envision and try to meditate on what exactly is the... we talk kelim, you're talking about kelim as being identifiable, mitzias nikeres, as he called it, compared to the nefesh. So that's the distance. Kamoi came bedugma kazeis, it says clearly. Kamoi came bedugma kazeis, the same thing, similar to this, bedugma, an example. Hene'eres v'akelim are the energies and the containers. Well, we do have an example for energy and container besides body and soul. That would be any physical thing, and its molecular or its atomic structure. So that's also energy within something. So you have, let's say, letters of you have a book, so you have letters on the page of the book, right? And you have the idea within it. These letters, these words convey an idea. The idea is spirit. You have, let's say, a light bulb, and you have electricity inside of it. So there are examples of energy and container in that sense. Like we say in Pasuk Chaliyahu, kama gufim tekinuslam. How many bodies did you create? Did you prepare? Tikkun is like prepare, create.
Fashion.
Did you fashion? Tekinus, right? Fashion is a good word. Did you fashion for him? So kama gufim is referring to the kelim. He's just giving a proof here why he's using kelim as guf. The example of guf and nefesh. So from this lashon you see that you refer to kelim of Atzilus as bodies. And yet, despite the fact that they are distant from one another, like the distance of a soul and a body, yet they come together. They come in a form of islapshus b'kelim. The energies manifest. They come and manifest. Islapshus, integrated, internalized in the containers. He's emphasizing this is not a so-called like somebody let's say like a tourist traveling by. It manifests. It's like someone settling in. Islapshus v'tisa mamish. Sometimes the word is hislapshus. Hislapshus means it literally dresses up. It's tfisa, and it's graspable there. Tfisa mamish. In Chassidus, tfisa means something is confined, but not in a negative way. Confined, bound to a situation. Tfisa means it's bound. Tfisa also means when you're sitting in prison, it's tfisa. But there's the negative, meaning that you can't get out. Here too, The Eretz and Kelim are not just passing by like two ships in the night. They meet, they join.
Caught, yeah.
No, because caught sounds negative. Trapped, you mean? I wouldn't say caught. I would say immersed.
Catch someone's attention means like it's doesn't necessarily.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, in that sense, yeah. Linked? I wouldn't, but okay. It has an element of link, but it become
When
okay.
Your attention is so drawn to something, like when you're caught into something.
Okay.
There's a better word for it. It's not
Captivated.
Yes, that's the word.
But here you see, you want to stay away. Captivated is more of a verb, right? When one person mesmerizes or captivates. Here you're talking here is that they are like they're two forces that, the best way to explain it is, let's say in chemistry, you have alloys that don't combine. They're just going to combine. You can't mix the two. There are alloys that combine. There are alloys that combine very powerfully. Like for example, when chemists or scientists, they experiment with certain new synthetic materials, the key is, for example, which is a perfect example. What is the strong? What brass is copper and silver and iron. So there are alloys that are combined because these two combine so well that they make like a perfect type. Another example would be actually things that are conductors. Copper is one of the best conductive. Silver and gold are not. Even a better conductor than copper is gold. But gold is too soft, I think. That's the problem. I don't think gold is a good conductor.
Silver is a little bit conductor.
Yeah, but copper is the best. And there's something else, superconductivity. What substance? It's expensive. That's why they don't use it. There's something that's expensive. But bottom line, what's a good conductor? It means its properties are such that are very little resistance to what is to the energy that flows through it. So it's a perfect. That's real hislopshus. That would be good examples. It's not. There's nothing that's superconductivity is when you come to the point that there's zero resistance. Like in a healthy human being, there's zero resistance of a healthy eye to the power of vision. When a person gets older and the eyes get weaker, or there's God forbid some damage done to the container, but when there's a perfect situation, children breathe. You see, they're living 100% of their lungs are being used. You can see the heaving up and down. We use 80% of our lungs maybe. That's why when you take a deep breath in, you cough usually because there's toxins. So as soon as there's blockages, there's the flow. The flow of energy in container is essentially this. That's why I'm elaborating, because that's what it comes down to. And real conductivity is exactly that. Is that the container is so seamlessly able to let the energy through that they just work so well together. And then there's situations where there are objects that don't work that way, that repel each other. There are those that actually, like fire and water. And then there are things that don't combine well. It depends on the property. But the bottom line is not every energy fits in a container. That's the point. Or fits perfectly in. Nevertheless, so here's the beauty of this. This is the interface. And this example, because if God did not create the world this way, if we didn't have these examples of conductivity, of conductors, look even a computer, microconductors, small elements inside of the transistor that allows all electrical items to work. These are all items that scientists and engineers have worked out that they work perfectly. They let the flow of energy through. So every time you hear Intel or others, now they've doubled or tripled. What is it? What law is it? Whose law is it? Moore's law. That every year or 2 years, what are they basically doing? They're figuring out how matter can be more conducive to flow of energy in smaller amounts. Once upon a time, you needed. So it is a matter and energy coming to meet. So it's really Eretz and kelim meeting in the most beautiful possible way. So it all is rooted, and this allows us to understand how we can connect with the divine. So really, it's all examples to be able to allow, because the challenge is they're two opposite entities. How can they come together? It's a good question in science too. How can anything conduct electricity? You think matter is matter and doesn't conduct electricity, and that's it. Electricity is a different world. There'd be no way for us to tap into it. Every time electricity would touch matter, it would make it explode. Imagine that. You couldn't have any technology today. The whole idea is that there is energy within matter, and there's matter, and so on. And why is this the case? So how do they come together? Who mipnei?
Didn't have all these Rishonim.
Huh?
The Malka Chassidim didn't have all these Rishonim. They had to grapple with with it.
Exactly, but remember, but they always had keiches and nefesh. So that
Pull back on that.
yeah. But here's the beauty. Here, listen to this. And what's the reason? For who mipnei shabe'ed is gam kamei shehein b'shashim mekain b'nitzev harim b'chinas esas sefirot. You hear the answer? I would love to see what the scientists would say. In other words, how is it possible? Let's make that into a question. How is it possible that energy, which is so different than matter in so many different ways, can join? So his answer is because energy itself has in it some tzir, some shape and form, and if it didn't, it would be able to mitzat kol yachol or other reasons, or be able to by compromising. In other words, this is the secret to superconductivity that scientists are looking for. It's possible because the energy. See, usually you think like this: okay, matter is a resistant, and you have to figure out how to minimize the resistance. So let's find materials that have least resistance. But you think about the material meaning the material should become more ethereal, more eisgedel, more refined. But there's also something going on in energy. Energy does have in it within energy is programmed the message. The message is right that you fit toward chachma, you fit toward chesed, etc. That's the thing. And right. So remember, all this is being understood by what he discussed earlier, because all this could have been said earlier, but you don't understand the idea of energy having a root. In other words, sefirot has a root even in the Eirei Sof Lifnei Tzimtzum. It has a root there. That was understood only based on the last few chapters. And what is this level? This is the level of B'chinas Aleis HaRotzen. As he explained, this is the level where it arose in his will. Shu'in ha'shara lohoyer b'midah v'gvul. He's just making sure we remember that. Don't think that sefirot in its root is 10 spheres. It's the artist envisioning and wanting and estimating in his own so-called mind and his own person that he wants to, that is going to radiate in midah and gvul with a measure and in finite fashion. It's fascinating stuff because basically energy is transcendent, but in the source of where it began also knowing that it's going to come into some shape and form. So that basically allows it to be transcendent. In chesed can be transcendent, and it stays chesed because it's rooted in such.
How do you mean transcendent?
Has the ability to go beyond this container, beyond its own identity. No, I didn't say that. No, that's the second step. That would be a strong example. But even going out of its own ego, let's start with that. If it can't get out of its own, if it's trapped in its own personality, it can definitely not interact with others. Look, let's put it in psychological terms. If we're all defined as being like animals and beasts, and survival of the fittest, the only way we interact is when I need something from you, you need something from me, so we exchange. But I don't really give you space. It's about me. If I can kill you and get what I want, that would be perfectly fine. I mean, that rule. However, since I'm able to transcend outside of myself, I'm not just some part of my ego and my selfish need to survive and exist. So I'm able to go out of myself. So therefore, there's a sensitivity to others and so on. But it begins with not being trapped in your keli.
The more coarse you are, the less you give space for something else.
Or the more coarse or self-contained or narcissistic. Okay, so that's a that even though in their root, the 10 spheres are an ultimate union, it means they're not distinct spheres. They're all part of one thing. So basically, even though they're that, the Hainer Shem B'chinas Pshitus, that means that they're in a level of Pshitus. Pshitus has been defined as formless, shapeless, seamless. All the lesses. Anything of substance, substanceless. So whatever you think is shape and form, just add a word less at the end, and then you know what Pshitus is. Okay, that's a good definition. To the extent, to the point, that they're not He says now Nikeres la'atzma. Before he kept on saying Mitzias Nikeres. Now he's saying they're not even recognized to themselves. Right? That's the last one. At all. In other words, if you ask them who they are there, they would not be able to tell you, I'm Chachma Bina, because we're all part of one picture. I'm part of the vision of the artist. Nevertheless, they are, at the end of the day, 10 spheres. Al Kaponim here, by the way, several times he uses it's a little different than he usually uses it. Yeah, but he's several times that the Rebbe Rashab used it. But Al Kaponim, he means here that with all this, they're all one, and all pshittas and everything. It means, but it's like the end of the day. It is at the end of the day type of thing. It's like in the final analysis. Yeah. Yeah.
What's the Al Kaponim though?
Because it's pshittas. They don't. There's no recognizable spheres. There's no spheres b'chlal. It's alei sadat.
Is different from.
Now sometimes you say al kaponim. You say, b'di'evet. Al kaponim is like b'di'evet or something. Like you'll say to me, can you come to my bar mitzvah? So you'll say, no. Can you come at the end? Okay, I'll come. Al kaponim then, like that type of thing. It really means many things in Hebrew, but usually in al kaponim is used more like a last resort or something, compromise.
What's it though?
It's to me a little different than I usually use. I don't know, for some reason. I don't know how to put it in words. Am I right? What's Al Kaponim? Usually Al Kaponim.
He's trying to force it. He's saying, look, we're saying that the subshit is and everything. So, but
Visual design.
Visual design, exactly.
Yeah, visual design, exactly. At the end of the day, the final analysis, like he said earlier, we can't understand it, but we can intuit it. There he spoke about this Ardus. Okay. So this again. This all establishes the dynamics that are happening in their source. But until the Tzimtzum, nothing happens actually. That's critical to know. It's all in the artist's mind. Let's put it this way. If the artist at this point wants to still pull back, he could. Because he hasn't created any art. He hasn't created any instruments. If there's no Tzimtzum, it's still all in his head, basically. In the God scenario, it means that it's all within the etzem. So it's like Nisava Kodesh Baruch Hu, they did it with Tachtenim, but he didn't put anything in motion that creates the Tachtenim. So Eifon Hamshachosim is Galusim Ho'edei Tzimtzum. That is very reminiscent at the end of beginning of chapter 28. Remember, he said the same thing. He said the Nekuda. We talked about it the other time. Nekuda b'chinas yesha echrena is Malchus Dein Seif. Omnam Nekuda Hashem shehischil is Galus, lachad Tzimtzum is Chochmah. It's like very similar. There's a Nekuda way it's in the source, and then there's a way it begins to emerge. I think that's what he definitely means. That in the source, the last Nekuda is Malchus. When it begins to emerge, it's Chochmah. It's like Malchus becomes Kesser type of thing. Okay, now let's go back here. And the way they are transmitted and revealed is through the concealment, through the Tzimtzum. What does that mean now? Not how we envisioned it. Not just al kolpon. Now we're talking about that there should be a transmission of a sefirot pratis b'fnei atzmei, an individual, unique, distinct sphere on its own. Because through this, it becomes a distinguishable, a recognizable, identifiable. I use distinguishable, nikad, it's nikad. And therefore, because now it's become an individual sphere, that's why now it is proportionate to be able to manifest in the containers. So here it goes back and forth. Eris and kelim on their own energy and containers are distant, proportionately speaking. Like the distance of a soul in a body. Nevertheless, the energies come into containers in a real manifestation, really absorbed by them, internalized. Absorbed, by the way, is also a word that you could use. And the reason for that is because the energy itself, in its root, as subtle as it goes, al kaponim there, in its root, it has some shape and form. I should rephrase that. I wouldn't say shape and form. It has, in the root of the Eidos, there are sefirot, meaning, as he says, Hashara b'keich, it's how he envisioned it. Had God not envisioned 10 spheres, we would not be able to make this statement, basically, because He envisioned in the infinite light before the Tzimtzum these 10. That's why once there's a Tzimtzum that conceals the way they are all bundled together. That's why these energies, each one can fit into its container. V'hainu, in the parentheses, v'hainu bekelim shem gamken elokuz be'etzem. And what kind of containers? Not just any container. It wouldn't fit into any. Containers that are also fundamentally divine. Yeah. So in other words, you really want to think of it like this. In the Shir Atzmi B'Keach, Avram, you're going to like this. In the Shir Atzmi B'Keach, the sefirot hagnuzos have eris and kelim too. Except that, remember, there are no eris and kelim. We're talking about in the vision. That when God wanted it, He envisioned a piece of art. But there's also an element of container, because He knows that art is going to be created through actual identity. So the key here is that sefirot hagnuzos is not just the root of containers, it's also the root of energy. But you do have containers, and that's why the containers are also envisioned by God. The only thing is they're envisioned without having a personality of divine. That's why they're not transcendent.
There's street cleaning on Parsa.
11. I'm just saying this because it's important, because now till now he didn't say this point. So the kelim of Atzilus are also alakus. So you can trace kelim also to lifnei tzimtzum. The only thing is you can't trace them for one reason. Because kelim, by definition, are just identity and just concealed. Everything in lifnei tzimtzum is a revealed state. So if you ask an artist, let's put it this way: the artist envisions, I'm going to make a piece of art. He's thinking about the energy within the art, the message he wants to convey. He's not thinking about, I need a paintbrush, and I need paint, and I need a palette. But the fact is, it's part of the process. There is going to be a paintbrush, and there's going to be instruments. So there is going to be kelim. But the kelim are just purely instruments of revealing the art, so to speak. He doesn't.
The colors and
No, because the colors can be the tziyur of the air. I mean, you could say subtly. You could say that as well. You could say details. Yeah, but remember the eir hachesed, eir and klei hachesed. He's not really analyzing. I'm just pointing out that there is that you cannot say that the kelim are also. They didn't. How did the kelim of Atzilus get there? Remember, that's rooted in the Shimu, remember that as well. But the bottom line is a keli, however you twist it, even if it's divine, but it's divine, it's a concealment of the divine, not a revelation of the divine. If you look at a keli without air, it's empty. There's no visible transcendent element to it.
It's blank canvas before we start.
So basically,
yeah, you could say that.
Saying it because we have to say it, in a way, because there's nothing distinguishable.
No, because he wants to say that it's not kelim of biyah. Let's say it's not containers of the world. Yeah. Well, be'etzem means mislabish b'kelim. He's talking about the slabish b'kelim. That this energy.
Even though we compare them,
But it's back and forth.
Okay.
Yeah.
but even though we compare it to the sparks, it's just their mamash. We say they don't.
No, because I was speaking that where these kelim in Atzilus is rooted, they're also rooted in Elokus.
Okay.
That's what I was saying. That's all. I'm not nothing more right now. Because.
Just to understand,
Because I'm explaining a line here. He said that the Eris in Atzilus are mislabish and kelim. How can they mislabish? Because the Eir itself has in its sefirot. So after the Tzimtzum, it has the ability to be mislabish. But he adds in the parentheses, hainu bekelim shein, which means in kelim that are also elokuz be'etzem. So I was explaining what means that they're elokuz be'etzem. Because they're also rooted in the divine source. And I was saying that there's also in Tzimtzum, you have to say there's the will for the containers. But that's the keich hagvul. That's all. Let's put it this way: Eres and kelim Atzilus, the protius, is rooted in the keich hagvul of Eir and the keich hagvul of kelim. If you want to put it in, and he said earlier, keich hagvul, which brings kelim, only comes through helam and richuk. Keich siluk, actually, you need siluk there. He does say that the kelim are the gabe the shimu is not dafka siluk, but the shimu the gabe keich hagvul lifnei tzimtzum is definitely yeshmai. Okay, vagam.
Don't we know something from the kelim? The fact that they're like we compare it to nitzitz from the essence from the coal. That itself comes out as mamish alakus.
Where do you get this mashal from?
We read it several places. That the kelim is like the nitzitz. So doesn't that teach us something about its source?
Yeah.
Doesn't it relate back? I mean, it gives it the quality, the true quality, transcendence.
Kelim don't have transcendence. Well, then that's air. So what's the difference between a kelim and an
That's
air?
what I'm asking. If the kli itself is alakus, then
Kelim cannot bring you back to the source. You have no way to retrace your steps with kelim. Kelim can be complete alakus, but it's identity. You have no air is what creates the bridge. Kelim would be Tzimtzum Arishan is also divine. Who made the Tzimtzum Arishan? God. What do you have with the Tzimtzum Arishan? You have total utter silence. So it's a divine silence, but it's silence. There's a reshimu, there's an impression, but there's no revelation. When you're sitting with a wise person and he's silent, he's there, but you can't connect to him. The silence is necessary for the flow, but only when there's a flow. If the father is hiding from his child and remains in hiding forever, you're not getting anywhere. Something has to happen. The child has to search, or the father has to reveal something, or else.
it's true. But here,
But you're asking something? Huh? I just was explaining this parenthesis about kelim. Yeah.
I think he's focusing more on the oil in this chapter. Not as much.
No, he's asked me. He's referring to my discussion on kelim. We're going to get there. I wanted to explain the parentheses. He said the kelim are kelim alakus. I'm explaining kelim alakus. But right away jumps to me the question. He just said Eris is alakus.
To differentiate, how can we differentiate between God's silence
listen,
and
Right.
the fact that it's a nitzitz.
Exactly. Yeah.
We can
What is your question?
The fact that it's a nitzitz
Yes.
teaches something.
But that's not relevant at all in this discussion. That I would not go here at all. That's a whole different thing. Yeah, it teaches us that God wants a dira b'tachtenim. He wants a home in this lowest of worlds. Kelim are the tachtenim.
Has to tell us about alakus itself. Is what I'm saying.
It teaches us that God wants tachtenim. God is alakus, isn't he?
Mm-hmm.
That the essence of God, wants a world like us. That's one thing it teaches us, and wants it defined like in kelim. There's other things. Yeah, we're talking about. I mean, earlier he spoke about that. We're not going to go there right now. Okay. Vagam.
Sorry. Unfortunately, it's at as you said, silence, godly silence and regular silence. There's no kelim, elakus, the kelims and elakus be'etzim.
They're fundamentally divine.
It's total, not gilu, nish gilu.
I would not define it that way. I would say the difference between kelim that are elakus. Yeah, good question. But I will tell you the difference between kelim that are elakus be'etzim and kelim that are not elakus be'etzim, that are not elakus, would be the way the kelim are outside of Atzilus, Bri, Yitzir, Nasir, they're ready, you can't call them Elokus. You only say Iyu v'gar Muyachad on the kelim of Atzilus. So, I mean, you can explain it many ways. First of all, the kelim of Atzilus have no yeshus. There's no chumris or yeshus. There's no self. They're not like, silence is one thing. Another thing is that a keli becomes a yesh. He thinks it's an entity. In the kelim of Atzilus are bottle. They don't have a personality, like, They don't even have a personality that will clash, like in Teyu. Huh? Chesed, Gvura. No, he has a personality, but it doesn't have a yeshus. That's what I meant. There's identity. He has an identity. Yeah, for sure. Identity. But it's lakus in the sense it's identity. The truth is, its identity is not functioning really without the air there. But let's just say, assuming kelim on its own, it won't go against the lakus. Kelim in this world can go against the lakus. That's the bottom line. You can use a keli that is used hepech lakus. Yeah, I wouldn't use that example here exactly because it's. I used because I wanted to show that kelim can be divine and not be revealed. So an example would be silence. But I wouldn't go further right now with that. That would be more, I would say the opposite of that is not the silence of a ferd. I would say the opposite of that is a keli that just does what it wants and doesn't follow the Ratzon Elyon. That would be my counter example. The silence of a ferd needs a separate sugi. Not that it isn't relevant, but I wouldn't put it here. No. I mean, if you want the example, would be the silence of somebody who's silent when he should be speaking. when he should be protesting, and he's quiet. That's not the silence of a chacham. The silence of a chacham is shogla chacham shtika. He's not speaking because right now he knows it's best not to say. But if it's someone that's silent when he should be speaking, that's already kedusha. I mean, anyway. V'hagam shat tzimtzum b'chinas miyut levad, and even though this tzimtzum, we're talking about the tzimtzum in the sher she'eres, the source of the finite, the vision of the artist in this art. This tzimtzum is just miyut. Miyut, just diminishing. The iyon ha-miyutu b'chinas gilei me'ahelam, as he explained. What is this miyut? That the kav is only revealing that which was concealed. Siluk, if it's completely covered, then it's not revealing what was concealed, it's revealing something new. Something new is emerging. Here, it's revealing something that's concealed. We have to read the parentheses before we go further. And this is the difference between diminishment and removal. Miyut means that the transmission is proportionate to its root and its source. Siluk means that it is infinitely distant. And what's being transmitted is something like it's new. So when something is just like the Beis of Baruch, you can't call hischachus and be'en arech. At the end of the day, it's a Beis. That's it. It's a Beis before, and it's a Beis afterwards. If you had to, however, completely translate the word, and I can't even explain Baruch to you, and I have to find another language, and let's say you don't even know Hebrew, but not just a matter of language, we're talking about qualitatively distant student who doesn't even know what a Beis is, I have to use a whole different thing and say, let me first teach you this. That would be siluk, and whatever you're saying then is not just revealing what was there, you're adding something new, you have to introduce new ideas. Now, of course, in this whole interface, we need a combination of chidush and gilei helam, because we want to have something that's divine and retains its divine properties. Hence, Eir Hagvul retains the properties as it was before the Tzimtzum, however, in a diminished state. And you want also tachtenim. You need to have identity. So therefore, you need siluk, because you can't have the bligvul. You need to allow the emergence of the identity of existence. This is all the parentheses. And in truth, even the siluk is not complete new. Another al kaponim. Because after all, it's still connected and bound to its source.
Even though there was a siluk.
Right. In other words, the kav, when it comes out from Chazer v'Hoyer, is still bound to the energy before the Tzimtzum, including the Bligvuldik energy, which he said only an impression. That's what I thought he was going to say, that there was still an impression from the Bligvul. But he's saying, the bottom line is Eir, as much as it comes down, as even the part that's completely siluk, it's still connected to it. V'hischachus mamash shaykh rag b'mitzias davar kamei b'kelim. Hischachus davar, here's also an additional explanation to what kelim are. Hischachus mamash is appropriate only in a real substance, something of substance, like the containers. So here we go, 3 levels right here. 2 in Eir and 1 kelim. Kelim is chidush mamash. This is a little hard to explain. I have to think about it myself. But I'll at least put the questions out. But let's for argument's sake, kelim is identity mamash, chesed, gvura, and chesed is not gvura, and gvura is not chesed. Clear. And that's a chidush, and that's why you need siluk for the kelim. For the containers to emerge after the tzimtzum, there's no question you need siluk. That wasn't even a discussion. The question is whether for Eir you need siluk. Eir, on the other hand, there's a part that is siluk. Even that, which is concealed from the kav, or the bligvul, he says, is not completely concealed. And there's something remains because it's connected to it. Therefore, you can't call it chidush mamash. He's adding now that the yesh ma'ayin, even the kav, l'gabe eir bligvul, is not like the yesh ma'ayin of the kelim, l'gabe its source. This is a parenthesis, but it's a very critical one. Because the whole thing began with the discussion is which one, is Atzilus a new entity or is it a revealed entity? Is it an emanation, like he brought from the Rakanti, from Mareches, I forgot already, that Atzilus is just Gili HaKomos. It's only revealing what was there before. It is revealing it, which means there has to be diminution. But then it says in other places, HaChochma Ma'ayin Timotze. The Chochma is Yesh Ma'ayin, even Chochma D'Atzilus. So it's Yesh Ma'ayin and Gili HaHelam. So the first answer, initial answer was, kelim, it's Yesh Ma'ayin. Eretz is Gili HaHelam. And then the Arichas was that even in Eretz there's a part that's Yesh Ma'ayin, which is compared to the Bli Gvul, because the Eretz has Gvul. Compared to Bli Gvul, it's like something new. And compared to the Eretz HaGvul, the root of the vision, of this particular vision, it's only Gili HaHelam. Now he's adding that the Yesh Ma'ayin, even the Eretz, the Gab of the Bli Gvul, is not Chidush Mamish, like the kelim, the Gab of their source. This is the mathematics of it. Now what's the Havon of it? That's the question. What exactly is the difference in the vision of the artist? Once he's envisioning a piece of art, that's why I was starting to go there. He's envisioning a piece of art. That's a structure, a particular structure. Out of infinite possibilities, he's chosen one possibility. Right? Instead of infinite spheres, 10 spheres. You know that. We know that it's also in the air, not just as a root of the kelim. That we know. That means in the energy of the artist, in his vision, the same vision, where there was infinite possibilities, like he said, within that, or shir atzme b'keach, he suddenly determined that I'm going to focus on one of the possibilities. This one is called 10 spheres. This is going to be existence as we know it. This is all in the air. This, he says, is not mamish chidush because it's still connected to the Bli Gvul. As we spoke about this last time. You cannot say that this vision of this one possibility is suddenly divorced from all the other possibilities. It's definitely one out of many, or out of infinite many, but to say it's like a new entity, no, it's the same artist. The same artist that can make a million paintings is making one. The same Eir Ein Sof that can have sefirot Ein Ketz chose now Shiratz Mebekech Alei Sarotzen 10. So that's clear. The question, however, is where do the kelim come in here? The kelim are also envisioned by him, and they're also elukus, and yet they're a chidush. So what's the chidush here? That's what's troubling me, because the kelim are also rooted. So the only answer is because the kelim are, as I said, concealed. They have nothing revealed about them. What would that mean in the artist? The only way I went back was with what we said: the paint, the instruments. The Tzimtzum itself. Let's start with that. Tzimtzum nikra kelim, the Alter Rebbe writes. I'm just thinking it through. Let me just bear with me. Tell me if this makes sense. Tzimtzum nikra kelim. So the Tzimtzum, that's what's. Where does the Alei Sarotzen for the Tzimtzum happen? Maybe that's the way to understand. You understand? The artist envisioning one out of many possibilities. We got that, but that's still Eir. Now he needs something. He needs a Tzimtzum to conceal. Where's that power of Tzimtzum coming from? That is definitely not coming from Eir, because Eir can't conceal. Eir is a revelatory force. So you have to say it's coming from a Rotzen and Keach HaAtzmus, the Rotzen HaGvul, Keach HaGvul, which means the Keach to be silent. So the one vision out of infinite possibilities is one out of many, so it's not silence, it's diminishing. Instead of infinite, I want one. But the power to conceal comes from a place that's higher than all of that. In other words, from a different source. And that's the power for containers. So the containers are elokus because you need that concealment. In other words, it's the ability for how can an artist who has infinite possibilities and then chooses one actually create one? And why doesn't all the infinite possibilities rush out and stop him from doing that one? You know what happens like when you're mad? Like what he said earlier. Remember what he said about sefirot Agnuzis if they revealed the way they are by a simcha? All the keiches, there's no seder shtalshus, there's no order. Let's say someone, by a simcha, his whole giluim are there. So he also has, can an artist, when he's drunk, paint one painting? No, he's going to end up painting a million paintings. It won't come out of anything. I mean just, when I say he's drunk, I mean to say, because all his keiches are flowing. So you have to have another force that's stopping him from that free flow. Even though he envisioned that one, you need something to conceal. That's the power of the Tzimtzum. That's the power of Tzimtzum. That's shor siluk. But the effect on Eir, we're talking about Eir HaBli Gvul to Eir HaGvul, or rather Eir HaGvul from the root of Eir HaGvul to the Kav, is only a diminishment. Compared to the Bli Gvul, it's a siluk, but not, as he said, it's not complete. There is something here that's still there from before. But the containers themselves are totally concealed. Yeah. This lecture by Mir, I don't know if I explained it well enough. If I need, I'll explain it again. Did anybody get it here?
No, I'm just trying to compare the silence of Etzem, of Atmos, with the silence of
a ferret. You're busy with the sounds of a ferret. Someone called you a ferret lately? What?
all the time.
No. Okay, I'll explain it again. Talk
about kelim on the level of
this is very.
Tzimtzum. It does how is it?
I'm missing the point about the case.
It have to be a siluk.
No, we forgot. Listen. I just the only reason I hesitate to repeat it again is because for all I know he's going to say something like this or something different, and I'll be wrong. But let me just speculate. I may be wrong. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, and I'll admit it. I have no problem. No, but he's not really explaining this. That's the thing. That's why I don't think he's going to say that here. He wants to go somewhere else here. He may explain. Let me just tell you how I understood what this line here. This parentheses, the question we all understand, right? What I'm trying to explain is like this. I'll sum it up again. Atzilus, which is essentially the perfect structure. Think of it like that. It's God's envisioning of the world, and it's actually the world in its perfect form. Everything is balanced there. If Atzilus was on earth today, you have the world of Mashiach. It's like Gan Eden Mikedem. It's like before the Chet Tzadas. Now that we after the Chet, obviously we'll have more than Atzilus. But Atzilus is like the Basiligani Achesikala type of thing. It's the way things ought to be. Every Eira Chesed is a Klei Chesed, Eira Gur Gvura, they work together. There's no Lei Gur Chara, there's no evil, there's no Lumazeh, etc., etc. However, Atzilus was not meant to be alone.
The physical sense, the physical. Right?
No, I'm saying, let's say the physical world was aligned like Atzilus was. That's what I mean. I know, I understand the physical, it makes the free will, and free will means there's a possibility. Yeah. But you're saying correct. I just meant to say, if we were able to be Mamshach Atzilus as it is here in this earth, everything would be aligned. Atzilus is Tzalmenu D'Musmein of a human being before it's been distorted, basically. A newborn child. Hevel Shei, Shein Beichet.
Pure.
Yeah. But a pure world, a pure structure. That's clear. The question is, so therefore it has something similar to our existence because it's structure. Nothing in our existence does not come without Atzilus. Every reality that we know has to go through Atzilus. Chesed is water, Gvura is fire, etc., etc. Everything. Saram Amoris Nivra Elam. Atzilus is that blueprint. Okay. So Atzilus has that element. But then Atzilus has another element. It's exactly the divine will. Meaning it reflects Elikus. And we call it Atzilus, not B'riya. Netzal. Which means it's an emanation, not a creation. It's not a Chiddush. Which means it's, like he says, it's the Gili HaKamus. What was the Lashon? I'll quote it exactly so we don't have any... It's on this side of the page. Here. Mashin is gal kreich HaKamus v'achosum mekreich halapel. That's the Mareches. Shlein is chadish davar. Okay. So there's the contradiction. On the other hand, we say Achachma Ma'ayin Timotza, which means Atzilus is Ma'ayin, Yesh Ma'ayin. So the simple explanation would be that Atzilus compared to Bligvul, Eira Bligvul is Yesh Ma'ayin, because it's after all Gvul. Compared to Eira Gvul, it's Gilei Helam. Compared to B'ri Yitzir Asiyah, it's Gilei Helam because it's Elikus. He also brings the Lashon, I should add, that Yeshu Misha'in Areich Asiyah L'gab Atzilus, as distant as Asiyah. Our world from Atzilus is infinitely more distant from Ein Sof. So how do you reconcile? As I said, so generally you can say the reconciliation is Atzilus is the Keach HaGvul, or in different areas, the kelim of Atzilus are infinitely distant from the source because they are kelim, they're containers, they're Gvul, and the Eiros of Atzilus are revealing the source. That was the initial explanation, but then he broke it down. That even Eir has also both elements. Are you all following me so far? Okay. So even Eir has both elements, that there's the Kav, because the Kav, the 10 spheres, the Eirs also have in them spheres, it's rooted in the 10 hidden spheres, so there is a place where the energy is rooted in Essa spheres. And Esser Spheres Agnuzas, the hidden spheres, are not just the root of the containers, like the Ramak says. And then there's a point where even Eir also has Yesh Ma'ayin in it. It's infinitely distant from the Eir HaBli Gvul. Okay. So, thus, there have to be two Tzimtzumim. From the Eir HaBli Gvul to the Eir HaGvul, you need a siluk. From the Eir HaGvul to the Eir HaGvul after the Tzimtzum, just a miyut, just diminished. Containers always need a siluk. That's not a question here. He adds now that even the siluk of the Eir L'Gaba Bli Gvul is not complete. It's not complete his chachas. That's what he just said. Because after all, it's still connected. Whereas the kelim, that's real chachas. It's very much relevant because he spoke before the thing, the Torah Shimas even. Remember he said, the impression, remember in the base of Baruch, or in the detail of a concept, you still have remaining an impression of the Eir El Kolona. And he said clearly that's not the impression that creates the kelim. Because that's helam. So the key operative word that I'm going to explain now is how is this, that there's basically the root in Elikus. There's two things rooted in Elikus, Gili and Helam. You can replace those with Eir and Keli. Eir is Gili. Eir is the Keach, is rooted in the Keach HaGili of Elikus. Kelim is rooted in the Keach HaHelam of Elikus. That's what I was explaining. I'm just using different words, and I think this thing is a little more bislapshus. So here goes like this. So you really need two things here. If you only have a Keach HaHelam, you don't have, meaning if God only conceals, even with the purpose of revealing, what you're never going to have is a revelation of anything. If you only have the Keach HaGili, and even if it's diminished, you're not going to have real substance, a world as we know it. So here you have like this. In general, Eid Ein Sof Lifnei Tzimtzum is Keach HaGili. The Tzimtzum itself is Keach HaHelam. So remember he said that Tzimtzum is Be'ikr for Kelim. Tzimtzum and Shaykh Vamunuk actually calls it Kelim. Tzimtzum Nikra Kelim. So Tzimtzum, for all practical purposes, is a divine power to conceal, to withhold. Eir is the divine power to transmit. Gas and brakes. Two different sources, two different realities. You need both for existence. Atzilus, we're going to learn, is where gas and brake work perfectly together. It's a world with structure. So there's a brake, there's a helam. But there's a part, but it's Eir. It's Atzilus, it's Netzal. It's not a Nivra. It's revealing the divine in structure. That's the whole, the so-called the anatomy, dissecting here the anatomy of this structure. So how does it work now in so-called before the Tzimtzum? We have to step back. And it's not so mathematical, it's really conceptual, but it also is a level. So I gave the example of the artist, and I think that example has a certain deficiency, which is maybe why it's throwing us off. See, the artist, we don't talk about the Keach HaTzimtzum. We talk about how from infinite possibilities becomes one possibility. But where is there the power to actually create? You see, the artist, we don't have a human artist, all he has to do is take from infinite possibilities and make one. But he's finite in the first place. We don't have the need for a Tzimtzum Hadishin in the artist. And now we're talking about the power of Tzimtzum. That's why the moshel doesn't work really. The only place I could see in that moshel where it would work is how he actually, like I said, if he was at a simcha, an artist marrying off his child is not going to be very easy for him to sit and make one piece of art. He's going to let everything flow. That's how it is. Because all his keiches are flowing. He gave this example before. Not with an artist. I'm just throwing the artist in. So what we're introducing now is another element here, is how does a existence come to be? It requires a concealment. That is the root of the containers. That's a chidush. 1 second.
It's like a projector with the shadow part of it, the black part. Allows the letters to emerge without the black part of it blocking the light. You can't see any letters. That's a tzimtzum.
If it works, it works. I'm trying to explain it.
Shadows.
Fine. Right. So the point I'm saying is the following, therefore, that in the Eir, there are two things that take place. Both of them are not total concealment. One is siluk, that completely conceals, completely removes the bligvul. But he just said it's not complete, because it's still connected. So what happens there is that infinite possibilities now allow for one possibility. But that one possibility also has to go through a tzimtzum in a diminished state, because the one possibility has everything mixed together, and it's all in a higher state, and you only see the kavanah there. It's all in the vision still. So now comes the kelim come into play. The koyach ha'einseif, to conceal and withhold, diminishes that energy as well, while concealing the eir habligvul. But if you talk from the perspective of eir has right now something that is almost completely concealed and something that is half concealed, so to speak. One is diminished, one is called concealed. But both are not total. The kelim themselves, however, the containers and the tzimtzum, it's by definition its state of concealment. Kelim are not concealed elikus. Kelim is the power to conceal. It's not concealed. In other words, you open a keli, you're not going to find air there ever. Only mitzad because there's iskalos. A keli is concealment. A air is being concealed, but it's by definition it's revelation. The question is how much revelation. So bligvul has to be almost completely concealed because it's just too intense. The air hagvul has to be diminished because it's too much. Everything is there as one. But in kelim is concealment. Doesn't have to be concealed. So it is concealment by definition. It's a davar chadash. What means davar chadash? You could say it's also rooted in atzmus, but by definition, since it's not revealing anything, it's like a new entity. It's a new power, so to speak. Eir, at the end of the day, even though we said, if you remember, Eir also does not really reveal the atzmus mamish, but the part that it does reveal, and even the atzmus even the rest of atzmus also comes in revelation. It's still at the end of the day, it is a revealer, not a concealer. There's only one thing that El does conceal. It doesn't teach you about atzmus, that's the yeshamiti and all that. And even that it ends up revealing. In other words, containers do reveal one thing. What he says in Tanya, right? That hu levade bekeich v'yecholte livre yesh ma'ayin. If you didn't have kelim, you'd only know that eir ein sof bligvul and so on. It's the yesh or the keli that teaches us that atzmus is not bound by being eir. That he's not even bound by that. But says Chassidus, earlier we learned also that guf is also revealed through eir, because the fact that we're aware of it, kelim don't even need to be aware of it. Kelim are just it. The fact that you and I talk about it and say the yesh nivra is megal yesh miti, that's already a gili. It's not a gili of gili, but it's a gili of awareness. Yes, so to speak. So the point is, is this more clear?
Yeah, but this threw me off now because I always thought the containers contain chesed in it or gvura in it. Now you're saying that
no, they're not contained.
Concealed.
No, they also contain chesed and gvura, but yet it's a concealer, not a revealer. Now I don't understand what you're saying because he's asking like this: if that's the case, then all the kelim should be like one. So you're saying the other way around. That the kelim now are pshittus. They don't have any difference because they're all just the kelim. You're right. It's a good point. It's a very good point. I would have to say, and I'm sure he discusses this, I would have to answer that. You're right, but there's two aspects in a personality, so to speak. The part that this is defined chesed, you're right, is defined. It's called chesed, not gvura. But you and I would not be able to see it if air would not shine. It would be like a dead body. So let's for argument's sake, say a corpse. It has arms and legs. And you don't know what a live person is. You'd never figure out from looking at a body. But as soon as the soul comes into you, you suddenly see, these are hands, these are legs, these are eyes, these are ears. So correct, klei chesed is chesed, but it's inanimate. It's not in any way dynamic. So ultimately it's a concealer with, just like air is a revealer that has spheres and don't become revealed until they go into a keli is inanimate chesed that doesn't come alive until the air enters into it. That's what he means by tzimtzum. Remember he said Asis is helam, and there's a reshim in them, but until the kav doesn't shine in them, so that's the point. So you're correct. In other words, let's put it this way. It's a concealer, but yes, the keli of chesed conceals differently than the keli of gvura, but you see that only when there's a revelation. Yeah, it's a fascinating turn of things, but if you look at Eir and Keli completely separately, Nefesh and Guf, it's a perfect example. You do not know. You know that a Guf is separate. You see different parts. But functionality, you'll never know how they're different. You wouldn't know, if you didn't know a human being, you wouldn't know that eyes see and ears hear. How would you know? Based on what? Until it functions that way. So yes, the good point that you're making here, which I think is vital, which I have not seen, but I have to look. The fact that Metzias Ha'elam, kelim, it says, if the air was taken out, yes, you would have it seared. But I would say even the tzir of the kelim come probably also from the air. It could be a tzir because it's coming from the same short shadish that has the power to create tzir. Just like air has in it a shtickle kelim have in a shtickle air. That's what you have to say. That's the reason. He doesn't say that here. We're already going, but it's a good question, a very good point. But at the end of the day, however, kelim on its own is keich hahelam. There's nothing to talk about this. For sure that's the case. I mean, he says it here in many different ways. The word hiskachus is interesting, because what's the chiddush? You could say, you know what? Just like Eir is not chiddush because it's revealing what's inside Atzmos, kelim is not chiddush, it's revealing what's inside Atzmos, except it's keich hahelam.
I thought that was the question.
Yeah.
Huh?
I thought that was the question.
That was one question. That was not my question. My answer to that, answer to that, that's answered. The answer to that is because because it's helam, meaning that it doesn't reveal. That's what chiddush means. Chiddush means it's not revealing anything. So the fact is, yes, it's coming. You could say it's coming from Atzmos. I'm not saying it's not coming. So that's it, but it's not revealing anything. So there's no so-called Gilead Helam, so to speak. So what is there? The only thing is, it's like a new force. Let's put it this way. Al pi seichel, if something emanates, like let's say you see a wise person speaking. That makes sense. His speaking is reflecting his intelligence. Then suddenly he falls silent. So silence is also coming from his intelligence. But that's already a chiddush from him. Because naturally his flow would be wisdom. And now silence would be like throw you, because it would say, okay, yes, the silence will reveal something deeper, but it's a chiddush because it's not reflecting his wisdom in a direct way. It's reflecting a deeper sense of wisdom. That's the chiddush part. That's how I would say it here.
Is that rooted? Are these kelim rooted in the unlimited order?
Go that way. Huh?
These kelim, are they rooted in the unlimited order?
They're rooted in Atzmos. Are they rooted in unlimited or? They come through, they travel through the or brings everything into existence, even the kelim.
The next muscle is like a 35 millimeter film, the negative.
Yeah.
So if you look in the light, you can see there's some areas that are darker, right? There's some areas that are. That's like a keli and a because it's not really its substance. It's darker, so that makes a picture. A picture emerges because of the areas that are darker. That's the keli. And I'm talking about this 35 millimeter film.
That's fine, but why is that not? Why you could just say it's another form of air?
It's not, because those areas are darker and the air are lighter. It's
okay.
Not really air. See what I'm saying?
So how does that help here? How does that?
Because it's not.
It's 10:30.
What do we do? Do we stop here and just finish it tomorrow? Because it's a slow moment. He's adding new things, and I want to just explain them.
Yeah, it's worthwhile spending some time.
I agree.
So you're saying we should stop?
We could go further to extend. Let's not rush. We have to set some.
This is
hot juice. Is hot juice that's what I was trying to. I thought that
Okay, we'll stop here. Stop it here. So we're stopping here. Let me just say, we learned page 47, beginning of 48.